Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. For the first time, a UN Security Council report acknowledges the role of the Resistance Front in the Pahalgam terror attack, says the killings could not have taken place without the support of the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba. Home Minister Amit Shah addresses the Rajya Sabha on Operation Sindoor, says that under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, Jammu and Kashmir will be free from terrorism. India launches an Earth observation satellite built in collaboration with the US. It is the world's first radar imaging satellite to offer high-resolution all-weather day and night imaging of the Earth's surface. A magnitude 8.8 earthquake off Russia's Far East causes tsunamis near Japan, sparks evacuation orders as far away as Hawaii and across the Pacific. And in cricket, England suffers a big blow as skipper Ben Stokes is injured ahead of the fifth and final test at the Oval. India aims to level the series. The United Nations Security Council's Sanctions Monitoring Report has named the Resistance Front, or TRF, as the group responsible for the 22nd April terror attack at Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir that claimed the lives of 26 civilians. Significantly, the UNSC team cited that the attack could not have happened without support from the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba terror group. It's the first time that TRF, a wing of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, has been named in a UN document. New Delhi has been sharing with the 1267 Sanctions Committee information about TRF and its linkages with the Lashkar-e-Taiba since 2023. DD India's Dheeraj Das has more.
The United Nations Security Council has for the first time officially identified the Resistance Front, or the TRF, a proxy for the Lashkar-e-Taiba terror group, in a sanctions monitoring report as responsible for the terror attack in Pahalgam in India's Jammu and Kashmir on April 22 this year. The report by the UNSC's monitoring team quoted that the terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir could not have happened without Lashkar-e-Taiba's support, and that there was a relationship between LET and TRF. The monitoring team report also says 5 terrorists carried out the Pahalgam attack. India had been briefing the UNSC about the TRF since 2023. Last year, India, on 2 occasions, briefed the UNSC on the TRF's links to the LET. The development is particularly notable as all decisions of the 1267 Sanctions Committee, including monitoring team reports, are adopted by consensus by the members of the Security Council. The mention of the TRF in the monitoring team report is how the world views Pakistan's lies and deceitful narrative. This also marks the first mention of LET and Pakistan-based terror groups in the report since 2019. The inclusion of TRF in the report highlights Pakistan's undeniable involvement in fomenting terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. Notably, on July 18, the United States officially designated the TRF as a foreign terrorist organization and specially designated global terrorist.
For the first time, the United Nations report mentions the Resistance Front, TRF, saying that member states have noted that one member state said the Pahalgam attack could not have happened without Lashkar-e-Taiba support, and there was a relationship between LET and TRF. Another member state said attack was carried out by TRF, which is synonymous with LET, and it mentions that Pakistan actually opposed it and said LET was different. So we were able to get into UN a recognition that TRF today is a proxy for the LET and is responsible for Pahalgam. Indian diplomacy has been successful in getting America to declare TRF as a global terrorist organization, in getting the UN Security Council monitoring team to accept that TRF today is a terrorist entity.
The External Affairs Minister also informed that the UNSC statement of the 25th April condemned in the strongest terms the Pahalgam terror attack.
The members of the Security Council condemned in the strongest terms the terrorist attack. They affirmed terrorism in all its forms and manifestations constitute one of the most serious threats to international peace and security. And most important, the Council underlined the need to hold the perpetrators, organizers, financiers, and sponsors of this reprehensible act of terrorism accountable and bring them to justice. I highlight this, Speaker, sir, because this statement of the UN Security Council resonated throughout the international community. So when many honorable members asked today, where was the world on Pahalgam? I think the answer is there.
In the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack, India launched Operation Sindoor, targeting terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The outcome demonstrates India's strong counter-terrorism credentials and its recognition by countries worldwide. Dheeraj Das for DD India.
The monsoon session of Parliament continued on Wednesday with an intense discussion on Operation Sindoor, the military operation launched in May this year in response to the Pahalgam terror attack. While the Lok Sabha wrapped up its debate on Tuesday, the focus shifted to the Rajya Sabha on Wednesday, where both diplomacy and defence strategies were the centre of the narrative. DD India is debuting the model reports on key moments from the House.
The monsoon session of Parliament entered a crucial phase as both houses took up an in-depth discussion on Operation Sindoor, a significant military operation launched in May to counter cross-border terrorism. While the Lok Sabha concluded its debate on Tuesday, the spotlight was on the Rajya Sabha on Wednesday. Opening the debate in the upper house, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar laid out India's diplomatic stance during the operation. He underscored that the ceasefire between India and Pakistan was not influenced by any external pressure and reaffirmed that the issue remains strictly bilateral.
There was no leader, nobody anywhere in the world who asked India to stop its operations. There was no linkage of trade in any of those conversations, and there was no cause between Prime Minister and President Trump.
The Rajya Sabha witnessed a spirited exchange, with opposition leaders trying to corner the government on multiple fronts, from intelligence inputs to operational details and political accountability. Responding to the opposition, BJP National President and Leader of the House, JP Nadda, strongly defended the government's handling of the operation. He hailed the Indian Armed Forces for executing the mission with tactical precision and unmatched professionalism.
यह जरूर है कि सारी घटना में जो रोल हमारे जांबाज फौज ने किया, जो रोल हमारे पुलिस ने किया, जो रोल हमारी आर्मी ने किया, उसको देश नमन होकर के उनके प्रति आदर के साथ। लेकिन मैं इस हाउस के माध्यम से देश को यह बताना चाहता हूं कि पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप बहुत महत्वपूर्ण होती है, क्योंकि फौज को आदेश पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप देती है, और इसलिए देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन अ रिस्पॉन्सिबल गवर्नमेंट, a responsive government, a sensitive government, a proactive government, and a government which responds according to the need of the hour.
Home Minister Amit Shah hailed the security forces for the success of Operation Sindoor as well as that of Operation Mahadev.
22 मई को हमें सूचना मिल गई थी कि ये जगह पे टेररिस्ट लोकेट है। 22 जुलाई को इनके लोरा सेट को ट्रैक करने का काम समाप्त हुआ, एग्जैक्ट पिन पॉइंटेड लोकेशन को आइडेंटिफाई किया गया और स्ट्राइक किया गया। तीनों आतंकवादी मारे गए हैं। कोइंसिडेंट देखिए मान्यवर, देश भर से मुझे बहुत एसएमएस आए थे, विशेषकर जो मारे गए थे उनके परिजनों का, इनके सर में गोली मारिएगा, जब भी मारे तब। तीनों के एनकाउंटर के वक्त तीनों के सर में ही गोली लगा है।
With more than 16 hours of debate in both the houses, Operation Sindoor has emerged as one of the most intensely discussed national security operations in recent memory. The government has clarified that the operation was aimed at neutralizing threats and asserting India's zero-tolerance policy towards terrorism. Clearly, Operation Sindoor, though concluded on ground, continues to echo within the walls of India's highest legislature, reflecting the nation's resolve and political accountability. The Bindu Mondel's report, DD India.
In its latest World Economic Outlook update, the International Monetary Fund has raised its global growth projections for 2025. Notably, India's economic trajectory is expected to outpace early estimates with a 6.4% growth rate in both 2025 and 2026, up by 0.2 percentage points. As the world's fourth largest economy, India continues to stand tall as a beacon of resilience and momentum amid a complex global economic environment. DD India's Nishjoy Roy has more.
A major global confidence boost, and India is right at the heart of it. The IMF now projects India's economy to grow at 6.4% in both 2025 and 2026, up by 0.2 percentage points from its previous forecast in April. The revision reflects a more benign external environment, signaling improving trade conditions, easing financial risks, and growing investor confidence in India's economic fundamentals. The upward shift in India's growth comes in the backdrop of a modest global upswing.
India accounts for 17% of the incremental global growth. This shows that the impact of tariffs on the Indian economy will be marginal, and the supportive government policies like PLI and RBI's central bank's policies of cutting the rates, these seem to be working on the ground.
The IMF has revised global growth for 2025 to 3%, also a 0.2 percentage point increase from the earlier estimate. Emerging markets and developing economies are seen growing even faster at 4.1%, with India leading the pack. For advanced economies, the forecast has nudged up slightly to 1.5% for 2025, up from 1.4%, indicating continued sluggish but stable expansion. The report strikes a note of caution as geopolitical flashpoints, uncertain trade dynamics, and fiscal vulnerabilities could still cast shadows over the recovery path. But for India, the latest IMF update is yet another international endorsement of its economic momentum, as New Delhi's steady macroeconomic management and expanding domestic demand continue to strengthen its global economic footprint. Nishjoy Roy's report for DD India.
In a major breakthrough by the Indian Army in Jammu and Kashmir, an anti-infiltration operation codenamed Operation Shiv Shakti was carried out this morning. Alert troops killed 2 terrorists who were attempting to cross the line of control in the Poonch sector of Jammu division, following which synergistic and synchronized intelligence inputs from army intelligence units and the police were used to lead a successful operation. 3 weapons were recovered and the operation was in progress. Notably, the encounter comes 2 days after 3 terrorists involved in the Pahalgam attack were killed in an encounter near Srinagar. Home Minister Amit Shah told Parliament during a debate on Operation Sindoor on Tuesday that the 3 terrorists killed as part of Operation Mahadev, Suleiman, Afghani and Gibran, were the perpetrators of the Pahalgam attack. In another breakthrough, Gujarat Anti-Terrorism Squad arrested a 30-year-old woman from Bengaluru for her alleged links with Al-Qaeda. One Sama Parveen, described as a highly radicalized operative, was nabbed following intelligence inputs following the arrest of 4 Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists on 23rd July. Gujarat Home Minister Harsh Sanghvi said Parveen operated through an online terror module and that her Pakistani links were traced through devices seized from her person.
ATS ने अल-कायदा इंडियन सबकॉन्टिनेंट के पहले 4 आतंकियों को गिरफ्तार किया है कल एक और बड़ी सफलता गुजरात एटीएस को प्राप्त हुई है। एक महिला जो बेंगलुरु से है, ये आतंकी खास तौर पे हाईली रेडिकलाइज है, ऑनलाइन टेरर मॉड्यूल पे काम करती हैं। उसके बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण पाकिस्तानी संपर्क भी उसके अलग अलग डिवाइसेस से मिले हैं।
India's humanitarian outreach to Syria continued with the delivery of a fresh consignment of medical aid. The Ministry of External Affairs said that India handed over a consignment of 5 tons of essential life-saving medicines, including anti-cancer, antibiotics and antihypertensives to Syria. The gesture is part of India's ongoing efforts to provide relief and medical assistance to conflict-affected regions and underscores New Delhi's commitment to extend support during humanitarian crises. Still to come on DD India News Hour. In New York City, 15 countries issue a joint statement expressing desire to recognize a state of Palestine. Thailand and Cambodia accuse each other of violating a ceasefire. And Australia bans YouTube for children under 16.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. New Delhi says it has taken note of a statement by US President Donald Trump on bilateral trade. The Indian government is studying its implications. According to a statement by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, India and the US have been engaged in negotiations on concluding a fair, balanced and mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement over the last few months. They remain committed to that objective. The Indian government attaches the utmost importance to protecting and promoting the welfare of the country's farmers, entrepreneurs and the MSMEs. It will take all steps necessary to secure India's national interest, as has been the case with other trade agreements, including the latest comprehensive economic and trade agreement with the United Kingdom. India and the US mark their maiden space collaboration with the successful launch of a rocket that placed an Earth observation satellite in orbit. The satellite is a cutting-edge Earth observation mission jointly developed by ISRO and US Space Agency. It's equipped with dual-frequency radar systems and is designed to monitor subtle changes on the Earth's surface. DD India's Jai Singh reports from Sriharikota.
2, 1, 0. All L40 engines generating nominal thrust.
In a copybook-style launch, the latest Earth observation satellite NISA was launched by the ISRO rocket GSLV F-16 from Sriharikota in the evening on Wednesday. Hailing the success of the mission, ISRO chairman Dr. Narayanan said there will be 9 more launch missions that will be carried out by ISRO before the end of this financial year.
And the GSLV F-16 vehicle has successfully and precisely injected the NASA-ISRO synthetic aperture radar satellite, NISR satellite, weighing 2,393 kg into its intended orbit. Being the first SSPO mission, several analyses and studies were carried out to make this mission a grand successful mission.
The name NISR is short form for NASA-ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar, as it is a joint effort by the two space agencies of the United States and India. The Deputy Associate Administrator of NASA, K.C. Swales, said that the NISA mission was a major achievement and a powerful symbol of international cooperation.
In this mission, it's truly a pathfinder, not just in regards to our technical collaborations, because those are truly incredible. This Earth science mission is one of a kind and really shows the world what our two nations can do. But more so than that, it really is a pathfinder for the relationship building that we see across our two nations, across India, the United States, building upon decades of collaborations that already existed.
NISA is the first ever Earth observation satellite to be built with dual frequency radars. Calling NISA a game changer, India's Minister for Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh, hailed the mission and lauded ISRO's role in its success.
That's one of the biggest collaborations at the international level that ISRO has engaged with. We're one of the most premier agencies called the NASA, which in fact took off much before we did. And today we are in a position to be equal partners with them. We have contributed the S-band, they have contributed the L-band. So in a way, we are partnering this new game-changing experiment.
NISA is capable of covering the entire landmass, glaciers, and forests once every 12 days, and can beam a tremendous amount of data up to 80 TB non-stop. As the satellite relies on synthetic aperture radars, rain or sunshine, pitch darkness or torrential rains, dark clouds or clear skies cannot block its eyes, and therefore it serves as an all-weather satellite, unlike its peers that use mostly optic cameras. Jai Singh's report from Sriharikota.
And my colleague Jai Singh now joins us for more on this story. Jai Singh, the Earth observation satellite has many firsts to its credit. It is a first such collaboration between ISRO and NASA. It's also the world's first radar imaging satellite that uses not one but two frequencies to offer high-resolution, all-weather, day and night imaging of the Earth's surface. What more can you tell us?
Well, Ramesh, there has been, a sense of pride after the successful launch of NISA into the intended orbit without going through any transfer orbit. It was a textbook style launch. The rocket really hit the proverbial bull's eye. So this is a very, very great beginning, a fruition of efforts of both the scientists from both the nations for over a decade. In 2014, this project was conceptualized and the MOU was signed, and now today we are seeing its effect, the world's largest and the most sophisticated eye in the sky to see even changes in the topography by a single centimeter. For every 12 days, the same area can be revisited by this satellite. So every 12 days, the whole Earth, including the glaciers and the forests and the land area, can be mapped with precision. So this helps a lot in planning disaster management well in advance. For example, we are well aware of the Wayanad landslide, which claimed several lives. So these landslides do not happen all of a sudden like earthquake. It is a gradual process, very subtle process. We may not be, knowing. But with the data, the phenomenal amount of data that is going to be received from NISA, we can see what was the situation 12 days back and today. With that correlation of the position of several aspects, like objects on the surface of the Earth, we can predict whether there is going to be any meaningful, changes that will lead to, any disaster or other natural or man-made phenomena. So this is a real good thing for the whole world community, because this is not only for India and the US, but this is open for all. This is for civilian use and a very sophisticated one. For the first time, such a big, $1.5 billion eye in the sky has been established.
All right, we'll leave it there, Jay. Thank you. My colleague Jay Singh reporting there from Sriharikota on the successful launch of the world's first radar satellite that will use 2 frequencies to observe minute changes on the Earth's surface. In other news, 15 countries have issued a joint statement recognizing a state of Palestine and reviving a 2-state solution between Israelis and Palestinians. The foreign ministers of 15 countries on Tuesday issued a joint statement following a conference in the US co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. France's President Emmanuel Macron announced last week that he would formally recognize Palestinian statehood in the month of September, provoking strong opposition from Israel and the US. France is hoping to build a momentum around the formal recognition of a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced that the UK will formally recognize the state of Palestine in September unless Israel takes various substantive steps, including agreeing to a ceasefire in Gaza. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said Britain will recognize the state of Palestine when the UN General Assembly gathers in September, unless the Israeli government acts to end the appalling situation in the enclave.
And so it is with the hand of history on our shoulders that His Majesty's government therefore intends to recognize the state of Palestine when the UN General Assembly gathers in September here in New York.
The Gaza war has put a renewed focus on a 2-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, still seen by many countries as a path to peace, even though the negotiating process has been moribund for a decade. Thailand and Cambodia exchanged accusations of violating a fragile ceasefire on Wednesday, just a day after agreeing to halt border clashes that killed at least 43 people. The conflict, rooted in a long-standing territorial dispute over ancient temples, has displaced over 300,000 people and drawn international concern. Thailand claims that its troops in Sisaket province came under grenade and small arms fire from Cambodian forces, calling it a flagrant violation of the truce. However, Cambodia countered with similar allegations. Despite early clashes, commanders on both sides have continued talks, and both countries reaffirmed their commitment to the ceasefire during a meeting hosted by China in Shanghai. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk urged both nations to honor the agreement, warning that the situation remains fragile. France has ruled out a statement claiming the European Union had not been fair enough in negotiations with the US towards a trade deal. French President Emmanuel Macron has pledged the EU to be firm in follow-up talks. Macron added that the EU could obtain new exemptions in follow-up talks with the US. Meanwhile, European Commission's President Ursula von der Leyen clinched the framework accord with US President Donald Trump on Sunday. EU exports are now set to face tariffs of 15% on most products after the EU-US trade agreement. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced Wednesday that his government will add YouTube to sites covered by its world-first ban on social media for teenagers, reversing an earlier decision to exempt the Alphabet-owned video sharing site. The decision came after the internet regulator urged the government last week to overturn the YouTube carve-out, citing a survey that found 37% of minors reported harmful content on the site. Details of how the laws will be implemented are set to be presented to Parliament on Wednesday, with the ban due to take effect from December. Australia announced that last year it was drafting laws that will ban children from social media sites such as Facebook, TikTok and Instagram until they turn 16. All right, now take a look at what else is making news around the world. In Nigeria, nurses began a nationwide strike to demand improved welfare, fair allowances and better working conditions. The National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives said the strike action became necessary after a 15-day ultimatum issued on 14 July expired without a meaningful response from the Federal Ministry of Health. In UK's Birmingham, fans said final goodbye to its most beloved son as Ozzy Osbourne's funeral procession passed through the Midlands city. The singer died last week at the age of 76, just weeks after his final live performance at the All-Star charity concert Back to the Beginning. Ozzy was to be laid to rest at a private ceremony in his hometown in the Midlands later in the day. A massive wildfire in Portugal is burning through steep forested hills. Over 700 firefighters, 250 trucks and 9 aircraft are battling flames that are opening multiple fronts and proving hard to contain. With temperatures soaring and land drying fast, at least 10 major wildfires are burning across the country, raising serious concern. Experts say that climate change may be making summers harsher, turning ordinary fire seasons into dangerous emergencies. Still to come on DD India News Hour. An expert take on a UN document calling Pakistan's bluff on terrorism.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. For the first time, a UN Security Council report acknowledges the role of the Resistance Front in the Pahalgam terror attack. Says the killings could not have taken place without the support of the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba. Home Minister Amit Shah addresses the Rajya Sabha on Operation Sindoor. Says that under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, Jammu and Kashmir will be free from terrorism. India launches an Earth observation satellite built in collaboration with the US. It's the world's first radar imaging satellite to offer high-resolution, all-weather day and night imaging of the Earth's surface. A magnitude 8.8 earthquake off Russia's far east causes tsunamis near Japan, sparks evacuation orders as far away as Hawaii and across the Pacific. And in cricket, England suffers a big blow as skipper Ben Stokes is injured ahead of the 5th and final test at the Oval. India aims to level the series. In a decisive move to uphold digital content standards, the Government of India has blocked 43 OTT, that's over-the-top platforms, for spreading fake news, misinformation and hosting inappropriate content. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting acted after consultations with multiple ministries, citing violations of Indian laws and non-compliance with the Code of Ethics under the IT Rules 2021. Over the past year, a series of crackdowns have been conducted against streaming platforms accused of hosting obscene content. The government had earlier issued warnings to OTT platforms in September of 2024 and again in February 2025. Take a look now at what else is making news in India. The Indian Coast Guard and the United Arab Emirates' National Guard Command on Wednesday signed an agreement on maritime security and safety cooperation in New Delhi. The agreement aims at enhancing bilateral maritime cooperation and contributing to a safe, secure and sustainable maritime environment in the region. This is the 10th such agreement with Coast Guard agencies of friendly foreign countries. Indian Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi on Wednesday undertook a day-long visit to Manipur to review the prevailing security situation and operational readiness of Assam Rifles and Army formations deployed in the state. During his visit, he was briefed on ground conditions and ongoing initiatives aimed at ensuring peace and security. General Dwivedi also called on the Governor of Manipur, Ajay Kumar Bhalla, and discussed matters pertaining to security and development. The last date for nominations and recommendations for Padma Awards has been extended till 15th August. The nominations for the awards will only be received online on the Rashtriya Puraskar portal. The nominations for the Padma Awards 2026, which will be announced on the occasion Republic Day 2026, began on 15th March this year. The Padma Awards, namely Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri, are amongst the highest civilian awards of the country. Now going back to the top story we are tracking here on DD India News Hour, the UN Security Council's Sanctions Monitoring Report names the Resistance Front or TRF as the group responsible for the 22nd April terror attack at Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir that claimed the lives of 26 civilians. The report goes on to say that the attack could not have been carried out without the support of the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba terror group. Joining us for more is Professor Harshvardhan Pant. He is Vice President Studies and Foreign Policy of the Observer Research Foundation, it's a privately held think tank headquartered in New Delhi. Professor Pant, welcome to News Hour. A big diplomatic win for India?
Indeed, I think this underscores the global challenge that India faced post Pahalgam and the way it has diplomatically been able to underscore its problems to the international community and get international community on board when it comes to this particular issue. And I think it also shows how widespread support is for what India has been saying all along, which many in this country were not particularly, were rather apprehensive about, that the world stands with India when it comes to what happened in Pahalgam. The world stands with India when it comes to terrorism. And I think in this particular case, there is also a clear link that is being drawn with Pakistan and what Pakistan supported and aided groups have been able to do in India and in Kashmir. So I think it's a big diplomatic victory. It's a big recognition that India's challenges are being seen as global challenges, and India has been successful in conveying this to a large part of the world.
If you look at the text of the document, Professor Pant, at least 2 UN member states have informed the UN Sanctions Committee that the Pahalgam attack could not have taken place without the support of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. One member state explicitly said that the TRF and LAT were synonymous. Does it not further expose Pakistan's lies and lay bare its complicity in fomenting terror against India?
Absolutely. And I think Pakistan has been living in its own delusions that somehow the world will ignore what had happened in Pahalgam, and somehow its shenanigans will be enough to draw the world's attention away from this problem. And as we are seeing, Pakistan has always been, at least for the last few decades, being seen as the epicenter of global terrorism. And that, that stigma that it carries continues with these kinds of activities that it continues to support. So I think ultimately India's global campaign against terrorism, and the way India had defined its global campaign against terrorism as a challenge, as a contest between humanism and terrorism, that has a broad appeal, and Pakistan's role in supporting groups like LET or now the TRF continues to be a burden on Pakistan's ability to be a normal player in global politics. So whatever Pakistani diplomats and Pakistani leadership may say, ultimately Pakistan is viewed through the prism of these groups rather than as a country that is trying to come to terms with its own challenges.
If we were to dwell a bit more on Pakistan, Professor Pant, the inclusion of the resistance front in the UN report comes against a backdrop of Pakistan's attempts to manipulate the language in certain UNSC documents. Now, it comes in spite of the fact that Pakistan is currently a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. What does that tell you about Pakistan's standing in the UNSC? Is it then not a barometer of prevailing sentiment against Pakistan? Does it not mean that there are no takers for Pakistan's claims in the UNSC?
Well, it does, and I think Pakistan now has to think what kind of a leadership it wants to project through its membership, non-permanent membership of the UNSC, because there is a lot of verbiage that has been coming from Pakistan as to what it wants to do, what it intends to do, and I think there have been some in India who have been concerned about it. But I think, as this report highlights, Pakistan's case is no legs to stand on, and I think the world sees through Pakistan's shenanigans and Pakistan's proclivity in continuing to use terrorism as an instrument of state policy. It remains a challenge for the world at large, not simply India. So when India says that this is not simply an India-specific problem, but a global challenge, the world is listening and the world is responding in its own ways. It may be slow at times, as some of us in India would want greater action, greater clarity from some member states. But I think by and large, this is a sentiment that now pervades across the international community, and Pakistan will have to rethink where it wants to go from here, because ultimately UN represents global aspirations, UN represents global consensus, and the global consensus continues to be against Pakistan on this matter.
Indeed. And finally, Professor Pant, Prime Minister Modi told Parliament on Tuesday that only 3 countries had backed Pakistan after the Pahalgam terror attack. He did not name the countries, but the unmistakable reference was to China, Turkey and Azerbaijan. What explains China's stand or behavior, and how should India respond to or counter this China-Pakistan dynamic?
So I think this is certainly, Ramesh, a big problem for India, because China continues to be the most important backer of Pakistan at this point. And if you see, for example, during Operation Sindoor, the kind of coordination we saw between the militaries, between the two nations, I think it is a sign of things to come. India will have to be prepared for this collusion to become even stronger. But by and large, I think what India has done very well is to stand up for its own interests. So we saw, for example, during the SCO Defence Ministers Summit meeting when Indian Defence Minister refused to sign the joint statement, where once again we saw collusion between China and Pakistan in toning down the language in favor of Pakistan. So clearly, I think India is quite capable of standing up for its own interests, and I think India will push back hard and should push back hard along the issues, on those issues which matter, and terrorism is one such issue where India really can't compromise. So I do think that the way we are presenting and what the Prime Minister said in his speech to the Parliament is indicative of India's resolve to find a new modus vivendi with Pakistan on terrorism, and the strong resolve that you see now in India, that every action of Pakistan when it comes to supporting terrorism will be met with resolute action. And that's what we saw during Operation Sindoor, and that is why it is worldwide seen as a as a new normal in India's response to terrorism and to Pakistani-sponsored terrorism in particular. But China will continue to be a problem, and China will continue to be a challenge.
All right, Professor Pant, pleasure as always to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The sacred Piprava relics of Lord Buddha brought back to India after more than a century. And Brendan Taylor set to return to international cricket after serving a 3.5-year ban.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. An earthquake of magnitude 8.8, among the strongest ever reported, rattled Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula, triggering tsunami waves of up to 5 meters high and sparking evacuation orders from Japan to the US and across the Pacific. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay reports.
Russian authorities cancelled tsunami alerts for the Kamchatka Peninsula, Sakhalin Island, and the town of Severokurelsk in the northern Kuril Islands following Wednesday's powerful earthquake. The earthquake of magnitude 8.8 had generated tsunami waves up to 4 meters, damaging buildings and forcing people to higher grounds. Evacuation warnings were issued across several areas in Japan and the United States. Later, it was downgraded in US state of Hawaii.
The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has downgraded the forecast from a tsunami warning to a tsunami advisory. The PTWC continues to monitor for more data to update its forecast and for an all clear that they may issue later on. A tsunami advisory means that the potential for strong currents or dangerous waves are expected or occurring for those in or near the water. There may be flooding of beach or harbor areas. Those who have evacuated may safely return home based on county assessments and directives.
Waves up to 1.7 meters impacted parts of the islands. Flights out of Honolulu Airport resumed later, while Maui's main airport remained closed temporarily, with passengers sheltering in place. In Japan, a flag signaling a tsunami warning was erected at a beach in Chiba Prefecture.
I checked for tsunami warnings before coming to the pool located near the sea, but at first I didn't think it would reach this area and there wasn't any warning at the time. So I came to the pool, but once I got here, it seemed like the warning area had expanded and the pool was closed. I couldn't check the news, so I looked on my phone and saw a message saying to evacuate again. Since there's no chance the pool will reopen now, I was thinking of just heading home.
Scientists warn that the future aftershocks can be as strong as the earthquake itself struck off Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula.
The peninsula is situated in the area where two geological plates collide. So there are two oceanic crusts that are diverging at speed of 8 meters per year. That's why it is to be expected and it is predictable that earthquakes happen in this zone. And aftershock were, are and will be in this region.
Authorities across the Pacific continue to monitor the situation, but the immediate threat has eased. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
And RT's Che Bose joins us from Moscow for more. Che, Russian state media aired footage of a tsunami wave sweeping through a coastal town in the far east of the country, carrying buildings and debris into the sea. What's the extent of damage? Any loss of life?
Yes, and indeed, it's a very, very large earthquake on the scale of earthquakes. It's 8.8. This is a serious earthquake, sparking, as we just heard, a large wave between 3.5 and 5.5 meters in height. Thankfully, we've nobody killed. According to Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, who's in the last hour or two has confirmed that there's been no serious injuries. I'm sure there's been some minor scratches and incidents as people were evacuated. And you can see from some of the footage that the damage was quite significant. The fish processing plant was damaged. But again, the sense in Russia, in this area, which of course in the very far east of Russia, a huge country, and this territory at one time was controlled by Japan. It's that far east. But nobody killed, nobody seriously injured. And the damage to buildings inland as well has been minimal, and that's being credited to Soviet builders understanding that this was a region where that is prone to earthquakes, and that seems to have been borne out. So for now, the threat seems to be diminishing, as your reporter has said. But also, we're getting reports that there might be a minor eruption in a volcano on the peninsula. So we keep an eye on the situation.
How is the situation now in Russia's Far East? Any idea of how long would the tsunami advisory be in place?
Yeah, I think, of course, with these situations, aftershocks and other earthquakes are always a feature. So the geological people and the Ministry of Emergency Situations keep that in mind. I think the acute alert is over, but people are still very much aware not to return to vulnerable areas. Again, something Dmitry Peskov mentioned here was the level of organization regarding the warning systems that was in place to get people evacuated on time and to ensure people didn't return to dangerous buildings. And the Russian Ministry for Emergency Situations has done remarkable work in many regions around the world, notably going to Turkey during their terrible catastrophe recently, and they deployed there. So they've got a great experience in these type of incidents. So I think the sense now is caution, to watch and wait. And it's the same around the Pacific Rim, of course, as you've also reported, in the United States, Chile, and other countries, watching very carefully what happens next. But I think as of now, the acute phase of concern is over, but by no means are people being relaxed about this. People are still watching and waiting very carefully.
Jay, thank you very much. Jay Bose reporting there from Moscow. Right, moving on to some other news we're tracking here on DD India News. The sacred Piprava relics of Lord Buddha have come home after 127 long years. Discovered in 1898, the relics were taken abroad during the colonial rule. Culture Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat received the relics, calling it a proud and joyous moment for the nation's rich cultural heritage. The relics appeared in an international auction earlier this year, and the government took swift action to ensure their return. And Prime Minister Modi expressed joy over return of sacred Piprava relics of Bhagwan Buddha. He wrote on X, and I quote, "A joyous day for our cultural heritage. It would make every Indian proud that the sacred Piprava relics of Bhagwan Buddha have come home after 127 long years. These sacred relics highlight India's close association with Bhagwan Buddha and his noble teachings. It also illustrates our commitment to preserving and protecting different aspects of our glorious culture." Unquote. In our sports news, with an aim to level the series, the Shubman Gill-led India will take on England without their skipper Ben Stokes in the fifth and the final test at the Kennington Oval in London starting Thursday. Following a sensational match-saving performance at Old Trafford, the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy heads into a thrilling finale at the Oval, where everything is still on the line.
The stage is set for the series finale, as both India and England will battle it out in the fifth and final test at the Kennington Oval in London. It's a battle of honor for India as they trail the series 1-2, and the best they can do now is to level the 5-match series. India will be confident going into the final game after batters eventually did their job and bailed them out of trouble in the Manchester Test, but questions looms over their bowling unit that has looked quite ordinary for the side. For Shubman Gill's India, it is an opportunity to bounce back and draw level in what has been a highly competitive series. After a few indifferent results in Test cricket in the last 6 to 8 months, a 2-all result in England could be a turning point in the format for this Indian outfit. England, on the other hand, will go into the 5th Test without their captain Ben Stokes, who is ruled out with a torn shoulder muscle. His absence is a major blow for England and for Stokes personally, who is the leading wicket taker in the series, scored his first Test century in 2 years in Manchester and has been named player of the match in the last 2 Tests. Jofra Archer and Bryden Cars are both rested after heavy workloads last week, while Liam Dawson is left out altogether. Oli Pop will lead for the 5th time in Test in Stokes' absence. Altogether, England have made 4 changes from the draw in Manchester, with Jacob Bethel, Gus Atkinson, Jamie Overton and Josh Tongue all coming into the side. After a save for the ages at Old Trafford, the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy now entered its climax at the Oval, with all to play for at the historic venue. For England, it is a chance for baseball validation on their own turf against one of the most formidable opponents in international cricket. Sports Desk, DD India.
Former Zimbabwe captain Brendan Taylor is all set to return to international cricket in the 2nd Test against New Zealand after serving a 3.5-year ban for breaching the ICC's anti-corruption code. Taylor, whose sanction ended on 25th July, is set to be named in Zimbabwe's squad for the 2nd Test against New Zealand, which starts in Bulawayo on 7th August. Taylor, now 39, has not played any representative cricket since retiring abruptly in September of 2021. His reintegration into the side began ahead of the ongoing 1st Test against New Zealand, where he was invited to train with the squad. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can get the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code that's now on your screen to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. All of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.